So what does Disney's rated G, The Hunchback of Notre Dame,
And he shall smite the wicked and plunge them into the fiery pit,
have in common with the Netflix original series Castlevania that is rated TVMA?
For all intents and purposes, I will be the judge.
It has an interesting take on this question: what is true religion? Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk analysis for Season 1 of Castlevania and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. On the surface, it might seem like these two things don't have very much in common, but not too long ago, I was watching through Disney Plus and just watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame for the first time. And then I had somebody request that I check out Castlevania, and when I did, I was actually blown away by certain similarities, especially in the character of Frollo and the character of the Bishop in the first season of Castlevania. These two characters kind of have something strong in common and pose this question: what is true religion? So the request to do The Hunchback of Notre Dame comes from my patron. Well, it actually comes from two patrons, Jeremy Hobbs and Traveler of Pages. They both requested Hunchback of Notre Dame. And Richard_22 requested that I take a look at Castlevania, and I've only gotten through Season 1 so far. But after watching that first season and having just watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame for the first time, I was like, this is so weird how I could talk about these two things in one video. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. So what is true religion? James 1:27 defines it. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Jesus also said, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Interesting that Jesus said, this is how you're going to know people are following me, their love for one another. Another thing Jesus said was, love God first above all else, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So when we look at this, we begin to see what true religion that God accepts actually begins to look like, because it's very relational in nature. But when you take a look at Frollo and you take a look at the Bishop, they seem to claim the name Jesus, right? They seem to claim the faith of Christianity, right? But are they really living up to it? I think a tremendous sum up and a great comparison of this is the Chronicles of Narnia: The Last Battle. In that book, there is this evil demon god named Tash, and he thrives off the blood sacrifice of his servants, so he's a wicked god. But then you got Aslan, who is the true God. He really is Jesus. He sacrificed his life and he shed his blood to save all Narnia. So establishing there how different Tash and Aslan are. And Aslan has a very interesting quote in this book. This is what he says: "For I and he, Tash, are of such different kinds that no service which is vile can be done to me, and none which is not vile can be done to him. And if any man do a cruelty in my name, then though he says the name Aslan, it is Tash whom he serves, and by Tash his deed is accepted." When you look at Castlevania and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, you find characters in both whose deeds are done to Aslan, truly done to Aslan. But then you have those, especially Frollo and the Bishop, claiming righteousness, yet their deeds are actually done to Tash and not Aslan. So let's take a look at this. When you have this rated G Hunchback of Notre Dame, how does it open? It opens with Frollo killing freaking gypsies. I mean, he's just going, it's crazy. It's a G-rated movie, and the opening song is all about how he's looking for corruption everywhere except within, and he's going around and killing the gypsies. This gives me to my first big point. You got Frollo and the Bishop so hooked up in religion that to them, religion is a box. And if something doesn't fit nice and neatly in that box, it gets destroyed. For Frollo, the gypsies are not fitting nice and neat into that box, and we open with him murdering. All right? This guy claims he's righteous, and he's murdering Quasimodo's mother. Then he takes little baby Quasimodo, because he's deformed, and goes to throw him in a well. this is a rated G Disney movie. Could I say that anymore? But it's the priest that stops him. And in one moment of concern for his soul, he asks the priest, what should I do? And the priest says, you got to raise this kid. But the kid, being ugly and looking like a monster, doesn't fit in Frollo's box. So he says, sure, fine, I'll raise him. You're going to hide him in the bell tower, though. So who's really raising the kid and taking care of the kid? Yes, Frollo shows up and gives him his education. But is that the same? No. And here is Frollo teaching Quasimodo that he is a monster, that he is hideous to behold, and just really pointing out his ugliness, even when he does his alphabet.
A, abomination. B, blasphemy. C, contrition.
What in the world is that? So what we see is this guy claiming all of this righteousness, but look at those vile deeds. It shows you there's no real faith living in his heart. What it is his ego. The bishop and Frollo have this ego. Here I'm going to get a little Christian cheesy and say this: ego edging God out, because they're actually truly doing that. In the name of God, they care more about their own prowess. They care more about their own authority than they do about serving God himself. They're in love with their own selves. You got the bishop, man. The first time we meet the bishop in season 1 of Castlevania, he is burning Dracula's wife at the stake. I mean, how stupid could you be? Yet while she's burning, she's crying out, hoping that Dracula will hear her, interceding for the people, asking Dracula to spare them his wrath.
I believe she's exhorting Satan not to take revenge on us, which I suppose is almost commendable for a witch. Perhaps I'll say a prayer for her.
But then we see, the bishop is just casually talking about, the archbishop is not long for this world. See, even in this moment, he's more concerned about his own authority. And here he is calling Lisa a witch because she's a woman of science, so she's not practicing magic, witchcraft, or anything. She's trying to advance medical technology and was learning from Dracula, an immortal who has a castle full of technology that shouldn't exist in the 1400s, and she's trying to learn from him how to do that. But, she didn't fit in his box.
I saw them with my own eyes. And glass in shapes you've never seen. Thin as paper. Lightning. Witches' things.
So much didn't fit in his box that the first time you meet him, he's burning her at the stake with the excuse that she's a witch, which incurs the wrath of Dracula. And Dracula gave everybody 1 year to kind of make their peace with God, but they didn't do it. In fact, 1 year later, what you find is the Archbishop kind of gloating about the fact that 1 year has passed and nothing bad has happened. No revenge, no retribution. And therefore, their righteousness is the thing that stands. And then Dracula attacks, sending his demons, the armies from hell that he's summoned up. And that's where it gets really graphic. And the attacks on this town begin. But at no point could the bishop just look within himself and say, wow, I made a mistake. That was wrong of me to burn somebody at the stake. Which is the next interesting thing, because neither one of these characters is actually capable of looking within. There's this one scene where Frollo, I felt like that song Hellfire, which is so stuck in my head. It's unbelievable. But when he starts Hellfire, he's praying, and it almost seems like it's okay, because when Frollo meets Esmeralda, he falls in lust with her. I mean, he just thinks she's the most beautiful thing in the world. I mean, there's that scene where he's sniffing her hair in the church. So yeah, he's having certain desires.
So typical of your kind to twist the truth, to cloud the mind with unholy thoughts.
And he's calling those desires hellfire inside of him. And that's this whole song. And it seems to start where he's like, I'm lusting. Oh no, wait. No, I'm a righteous man. I can't have these feelings. Esmeralda is a witch, and using her witchcraft, she has placed a spell on me. You see, that's called denial. And he's shifting the blame. It ain't her, it's all him, and he's shifting the flippin' blame as he's singing a song about his own lust and a rated G Disney movie. And then, in this very same movie, the prayer gets so full of it that it ends this way. She will either be mine or she will die. Or basically burn in the hellfires. That's how much lust is consuming him. And rather than finding any form of repentance and realizing, oh my gosh, 1 John 1:9, well, if I just confess my sin, then I'm forgiven and he cleanses me of all unrighteousness. No, he goes and he makes God out to be a liar and says that he's righteous. It's absolutely insane. And the bishop is doing the same dang thing.
The other great cities are lost or losing. To all intents and purposes, I will be the church.
Seriously, dude? What a villainous moment. In fact, he's so villainous that when these speakers show up, which is these group of people, and some of them are magical scholars. So when they show up to give aid to this city, what does this bishop do? He blames them for Dracula attacking because, again, a little bit of magic practice in there, they don't fit in his box. They came after the fact. They came to bring aid and they came to bring help. And instead, he blames it on them. And Trevor Belmont is blown away when he sees how much the bishop actually believes it is the speakers. That if they could just kill all these speakers, then Dracula's horde will stop attacking. That's how much denial that he got into, and that he hardened his heart so much that he just thought that. The most powerful scene in Castlevania for me is the scene where the demons enter the church. And when he realizes it's demons that have entered the church, he starts to freak out because he's like, wait, no. This is a house of God. Demons can't enter a house of God.
God is not here. This is an empty box.
Let's examine that for a second. Why is God not there? When God makes a promise, he doesn't break it. Jesus said, I will never leave you or forsake you. Therefore, that promise will never be broken. But when I'm watching that episode, I kind of see that church was an empty box, that God was not in there. Why? Because was the bishop serving God? No, though he said the name Aslan, it was Tash who was accepting his deeds. Though he said the name Jesus, it was these demons that were accepting his deeds.
We love you. We couldn't be here without you.
And he complains and says, but the church has been my life's work. You know, when you get caught up in ministry, it can be so easy to get so abundantly caught up in ministry that you forget about God, whom you're supposed to serve in ministry. And that's exactly what happened to this guy. He forgot God in the process of trying to serve God. He wasn't serving God. He was serving himself. He was serving his ego. He was serving his pride. And it gave these demons power. God didn't forsake him. He left God. God wasn't in that church because he wouldn't let God in that church.
I will be the church. I have done his bidding. My life's work is in his name.
Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. By the way, the church is not a building, it's the people. Jesus said, where two or more are gathered in my name, I am in their midst. This guy had it all wrong and so religious that he had zero relationship with God whatsoever. And that's what gave those demons the power over him. And then with Frollo, man, he meets a fiery end. He sets Paris on fire to try to slake his fiery lust for Esmeralda as he's searching her down and burning all of Paris. And in the end, he burns. He reaped what he sowed. He burned, he destroyed innocent lives. That gargoyle comes to life, and I take that as the demon coming to life and claiming his soul. Because though he said the name Jesus, it was those demons that took his service because he didn't do anything in the love of God. Now here's the other thing that's incredibly interesting to me. The Hunchback of Notre Dame asks this question, who's the monster and who's the man? You'd think it's Quasimodo because of how hideous he is, that he's the monster, and you would think Frollo's the man because he's the man of God. He's the leader, right? That's what you would think. Except Frollo is the monster because he had no real relationship with Jesus. When you look at Quasimodo, here's a character who was shoved under the carpet, basically, like as a thing of shame. Quasimodo was so full of love, and this is incredible to me, that he fell in love with Esmeralda. But she was in love with that soldier, and the soldier was in love with her. And when it came down to it, his love was selfless. And so he put her hand in his hand. He loved her the right way and was seeking her highest good, and she loved that soldier. So rather than becoming a villain himself and being consumed with envy and jealousy, he had real love in his heart and was able to let her go. Esmeralda had that powerful song when she was in sanctuary in the church for the first time, praying for her people who were being persecuted, while everybody else in the church is praying for the glory of their own name. And they're praying for their own success. So it demonstrates that difference between, like even she was saying in the song, God, are you there? I don't even know if you are or if you can hear me. But it shows you she was the one with the true humble heart that was actually truly seeking, while everybody else was just trying to see what they could get for them. And so you see the difference illustrated between cold religion and real relationship with God. I mean, you see the same thing with Trevor Belmont, who is a flippin' hysterical and awesome character. He's kind of aimless when the show begins. But then, of course, if I was in his shoes, I might be a little aimless too, because he's Trevor Belmont. The Belmont family, they fought monsters, and then they were excommunicated for fighting monsters.
My family committed no crime. You people simply decided we were wrong to defend this land against the supernatural, and now...
You Belmonts!
I'm leaving.
But when opportunity is presented to him, even though he's a little reluctant to act at first, it's because he's got that good heart that he was able to humble himself and step into the action and take on the role that he was supposed to accept.
And it's not the dying that frightens us. It's never having stood up and fought for you.
Now, I haven't gotten the other seasons of Castlevania, so I don't know where all of that goes, but you could just see the difference between love and religion. So here's what I'm saying. Let's get into true religion as defined by James 1:27. As defined by Jesus, when Jesus said, "This is how people will know you follow me, because of their love for one another." Love God first and foremost above all else, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. In Esmeralda's prayer for the outcast, she was asking Jesus, were you an outcast? The answer to that question is, heck yeah, he was an outcast. Jesus did a really good job getting along with everybody, with the sinners, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the worst of his day. He came for the worst of the worst. The people he had a hard time getting along with were the religious people who thought they were the most righteous thing since sliced bread. They thought they could do absolutely no wrong, and in their pride, they resisted him at every single turn. Jesus said this, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have come not to call the righteous, but sinners." In these two examples, you have your Frollos and you have the bishops. You have these type of characters who think they're the most righteous thing since sliced bread. And as a result, it's kind of like they really have edged God out. And it might even be a step further. Here they find themselves contending against the very will of God. But then you have those Quasimodos, those Esmeraldas. You have the Trevor Belmonts, those that have been excommunicated and those that have been rejected, and Jesus comes to call them. Let me ask you something. Are you a sinner? I am too. Jesus came to call the sinners. Jesus came to heal the sick. Jesus came to call us not to a cold, dead religion, but to a living, vibrant relationship with him. It's amazing how that transforms our lives, and then his love flows out of our lives. So what did you guys think of the Hunchback of Notre Dame? And if you've seen Castlevania, what did you think of that? Let's talk in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian, and hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified the next time I do a movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.